Angel Reese has taken this season off to focus on her off-court endeavors and to avoid these losses that the Chicago Sky are accumulating, to avoid them appearing on her resume. Angel Reese doesn't really care about basketball.
Something's not adding up here. For team reports, Angel Reese hasn't touched the court since the All-Star break. The Chicago Sky are drowning with an 823 record. And all we've heard from the team is 2 words. Back injury, no cause, no timetable, no details at all.
I think Angel Reese, and I'm saying this with my chest out, I think she's quit on the Chicago Sky.
In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through the timeline, the Instagram breadcrumbs, and why the Sky record matters for her future. Meanwhile, her social media is lighting up with comments that look a lot like exit. Hints. Is this rehab, or is she quietly distancing herself and preparing to leave? Let's start with the timeline because that's where the mystery really begins.
Is she going to play this season? Probably not. Probably not.
Angel Reese's last appearance came right before the All-Star break, and she hasn't suited up since. No practice clips, no shots of her taking warm-ups. Just a sudden note from the team that she had a back injury. The strange part, that term didn't even surface until several days later. And even then, there was no detail on when or how it happened. Normally, you hear something like, she tweaked it in the second half or it flared up during training. With Ree, it was dropped out of nowhere with zero explanation.
She's been claiming a back injury basically since the All-Star break. And there's no details. Every day we hear that Angel Reese is day to day.
When you look at the actual sequence, it's hard to ignore. She plays that final game. The Sky are already deep in the standings hole. And right after they're clearly out of playoff contention, she's out indefinitely. The timing almost feels too neat. If you're a star in the middle of a rough season, this is exactly when the spotlight gets harshest. Every bad game turned into ammo for critics.
I think this is a worse version than Kawhi Leonard. I think she's using her back as an excuse to sit out because she doesn't really care about basketball.
Just like that, she's no longer on court and the information pipeline goes dry. And here's the part that's driving fans crazy. The coach's public line has repeatedly been the same. She's rehabbing. It's day-to-day, but no cause or return date has been offered. Reporting shows not a single specific diagnosis has come out. Compare that with Caitlin Clark earlier this season. Her team immediately outlined the injury, the test results, a recovery plan, and even floated a possible August return. That's the level of transparency fans are used to, whether it's a knee tear, an ankle sprain, or a concussion. In Reese's case, just the vague, she's focusing on rehab over and over.
Angel Reese declined to travel to Indianapolis, and her coach came out and said something about, she's just focused on her rehab right now, and, she's day to day. We've never had an explanation on what caused the back injury, what's a time frame for her recovery. It's similar to so-and-so's back injury. This is something she struggled with here or there. All we've heard is day-to-day, and Angel Reese has disappeared.
When every media availability sounds like a copy-paste, people start filling in the blanks themselves. Some think the team is hiding something. Others think Ree has already checked out mentally and doesn't want to risk more ugly losses.
I think she looks over at Caitlin Clark and says, hey, Caitlin Clark is out with a legitimate injury. I proved my point.
And it's not like they've been battling for a playoff berth in her absence. Right now, Chicago's overall record sits at 823, a full 15 games under 500. They've dropped games to the league's bottom teams and been run off the floor by Indiana, all without her even in uniform.
And now she said, hey, the Chicago Sky sucked this year. Peace out. No one's going to call her out on that. I came to this conclusion this weekend when I watched the Indiana Fever destroy the Chicago Sky in Indianapolis on Saturday. Guess who wasn't there? Angel Reese.
If this is purely injury related, it's still fair to ask why the secrecy. The absence of a timetable, the total lack of visible rehab updates, and the fact that her disappearance lines up with a brutal stretch of the schedule makes it easy to connect it. It almost reads like a calculated decision to step away and minimize damage before looking ahead to what's next.
I just don't think is the case, especially when your team is as bad as it is. Like, absolutely just stinking it up constantly. Like the Chicago Sky stink.
And maybe that's the real story here, because while the team stays mom, Reese herself might already be sending signals somewhere else entirely. What's been catching people's eye lately is what Angel Reese has and hasn't been doing on social media. The pattern isn't random, it's suggestive.
Brittany Sykes got traded. Brittany Sykes getting traded is pretty big. And if you guys didn't see, Brittany Sykes put out an Instagram post. And she ended it with like, P.S. It was something along the lines of like, P.S. taking things into your own hands. So basically, she made it clear she wanted out. Like, that she either asked for a trade or demanded a trade. However, if you guys didn't see it, the end of it was like, obviously it was something like that. Angel Reese, heavy on the PS.
That's enough of a sign. The day news broke that Sykes was headed to the Seattle Storm, WNBA Twitter lit up. Fans argued over whether it was smart business or a huge mistake for Washington. But tucked inside all that noise was Sykes' own Instagram post where she closed with a PS. Making a decision for yourself is a hell of a deliberating feeling. Reese reportedly commented on that post. And according to social chatter, she went heavy on the PS. That's what caught people's attention. It wasn't the usual good luck or proud of you you'd expect. It felt more like a subtle nod to the idea of choosing your own exit.
Angel Reese, she says, heavy on the PS. Love you, Slimsky. Now, a lot of people like, she trying to, she pretty much let y'all look. So she's spoken.
Then came a post from a fan account about a player needing to make the best decision for their career. Reese didn't just like it. She added emojis that followers interpreted as coded. Some saw a subtle shade toward the sky. Others saw a quiet just watch warning. Either way, it broke from the kind of team-focused messaging you usually see from players locked into a franchise.
This makes it sound like she is asking for a trade. Or she's at least implying she wants to be traded. Because at the end of the day, you just never know. You just never know what's in players' minds, but this is what it seems like. That's the conclusion. That's the conclusion her own fans have jumped to, that she wants out of Chicago.
Around this time, her feed shifted. Gone were the behind-the-scenes shots from practice, the locker room selfies, and the game day hype. In their place, likes and comments on photos of former teammates in new jerseys or players enjoying life away from the grind. Observers also pointed out her follows seemed to change. Less Chicago Sky content, more connections with players from big market contenders.
She put it out there. Now, some people are like, man, that ain't nothing. She just supporting Brittany Sykes and all that. Angel Reese dropping way too many clues. She was dropping way too many hints. Angel Reese is not a slow child. She knows exactly what she's doing. Whether y'all want to admit it or not, Angel Reese ain't happy.
For WNBA fans, these hints matter. Cryptic captions, strategic likes, and sudden interactions have long been the soft launch for player exits. From song lyrics to cropped photos that precede trades or signings. In Reese's case, the online breadcrumbs match her absence from the court, and her tone suggests distance from the sky. Not proof, but a familiar pattern fans recognize. And that's the thing. People wouldn't be reading this deeply into her Instagram if the situation in Chicago didn't already look rough. These social media tells matter because of what's happening or not happening and on the floor. Next, I'll show why the Sky's record makes those breadcrumbs impossible to ignore.
She knew, she identified once they lost Vandersloot, their point guard, early in the year, and once they started getting their brains beat in, hey, we're not gonna win anything this year. I'm not putting these L's on my resume. I'm going to have an excuse for the Chicago Sky potentially coming in with the worst or second worst record in the WNBA.
The Chicago Sky are 823 this season. That's 15 games under 500. This isn't just a bump in the road. It's another chapter in what feels like a stuck cycle since their championship run. There's been no clear rebuild plan, no sense of a developing core, just constant patchwork lineups that never quite click. In that kind of environment, certain players inevitably become the focus. Background coverage and some. Analysts have argued that Ariel Atkins has emerged as the Sky primary on-court leader this season, while Rhea is seen more as the second option. Commentators have also pointed out the Sky are 1-10 in games Rhea hasn't played, underscoring how quickly things crumble without both of them available. That performance gap doesn't mean Rhea is the go-to star. It paints a picture of a team that can't sustain itself when even one key piece is missing.
All we've heard is day-to-day, and Angel Reese has disappeared. She knew, she identified once they lost Vandersloot, their point guard, early in the year, and once they started getting their brains beat in, hey, we're not gonna win anything this year. I'm not putting these L's on my resume. I'm going to have an excuse for the Chicago Sky potentially coming in with the worst or second worst record in the WNBA. These losses will not be on my resume. It'll actually, in her mind and in some of these Twitter groupies that post about her, this is proof of how valuable Angel Reese is. The Chicago Sky are 1-10 in games Angel Reese doesn't play.
Here's the hard truth. In a small league like the WNBA, losing seasons aren't just frustrating. They can drag down a player's market value fast. There's no luxury of slogging through a multi-year rebuild while still cashing in on max endorsements. If you have an established name or a growing brand, staying tied to a sinking team isn't just a basketball problem. It's a career risk. That's why some commentators see her absence as more than injury management. Look at her season stats before she sat. Shooting efficiency down, rebounding solid but not dominant, and defensive lapses magnified on national broadcasts. Keep playing through a losing stretch, and those numbers risk taking another hit. Step back now, and the stat line freezes. There's no fresh footage of rough shooting nights or blown assignments to circulate in the offseason.
Someone just, I got a backache, and I'm sitting out, and I'm day to day without any explanation. Someone who is so bothered by Caitlin Clark's popularity.
Background commentators have also suggested the Sky aren't promoting Reese the way other teams amplify their stars. You don't see the big features, hype videos, or branded segments that keep a player front and center, even during injury recovery. That lack of push feeds into the idea she may feel the need to look out for her own image rather than let it ride with a franchise that isn't doing the work for her.
There are people that play sport, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever, because they have the talent, because they have the requisite physical gift. Angel Reese is 6'3". What else was she gonna do?
Put all that together, and sitting out becomes a strategic move, limiting exposure during a rough patch, keeping her season profile stable, and avoiding being defined by another year in a team spiral. Analysts have noted that across the league, more players are choosing not to burn prime years in situations where wins and visibility seem far off. In that light, this season's silence might not be about waiting for a clean bill of health from Chicago staff. It could be about making sure she controls the terms of her next move. And when you lay that against the bigger backdrop of what's been happening off the court, a certain picture starts to take shape.
If you're not available, you have no value. And so you can sit there and say, well, the same applies to Caitlin Clark. Yes, it does. But Caitlin Clark appears to have a legitimate injury that everybody can trace to a moment and a time during the games where she re-aggravated. She originally injured. She had a comeback where it lasted 2 or 3 games, re-injured it. They've hinted at a time frame of late August that she may return. Nothing but a mystery surrounds Angel Reese.
Taken together, the lack of specifics about her injury, the social media hints, and the guy's position in the standings make it reasonable to suspect Angel Reese could be distancing herself and preparing for a change, but we can't say for sure. The timing, the tone, and the optics all raise questions that don't have official answers yet. Drop your prediction. Trade this off season stays and returns or finishes her contract. Pick one and tell us why in the comments. If you want quick WNBA updates and reaction like this, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Right now, the pattern definitely feels familiar.